All right. Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. She is Alexis Kraft, and we are here invited by Bleach Report. Special thanks to them to break down the draft for the Rams. We're going to be grading each pick, and then we'll have a final grade at the end. Be sure to, like and, also you can follow us on this platform here, right on the app. You can follow me at JK Bogan, and you can follow Alexis at Alexis. Looks like it's just Alexis in your account. I don't know. It is at the Alexis Craft on social media though. So let's dive in. The Rams ended up taking two Seminoles. We'll start with the first one, Jared Verse, who started out at UAlbany and transferred to Florida State, became one of the best pass rushers in all of college football. He is now a Ram at pick 19. Alexis, what was your grade on this one?
So this is an A+ pick for me. Jared Verse was my number one edge in the class, and I was shocked that he was available at 19. But it was just the way the draft was falling. Obviously a big run on quarterbacks and offensive players that kind of allowed some of these defensive guys to fall in the first round. So, yeah, I mean, Jared Verse, 6'4", 254 pounds, absolutely relentless guy when you watch him on film, extremely high motor. He's very athletic, and obviously everyone at the NFL level is athletic, but I mean, NFL scouts, if you look at scouting reports on Jared Verse, everybody just talks about how he has elite athletic skills, high motor. He's very flexible, which is something that you'll notice at the line of scrimmage. It allows him to get around offensive linemen easier than some other edge rushers, has great use of his hands. But yeah, just kind of like, again, from the start of the play to the end of the play, very high motor, very hard to contain him. And I'm really happy that he's a Los Angeles Ram. Like I said, my number one edge in the class, A+ grade.
Yeah, I'm going to give it A+ as well. I think, first off, you look at Jared Verse and just the power that he exhibited. You lose Aaron Donald due to retirement, and you lost some other guys in free agency. Ernest Brown was going to be in this rotation, I believe, but you really haven't recovered since losing Von Miller and Leonard Floyd. And so you go out and you get a franchise pass rusher essentially in Jared Verse, who can win with speed, can win with power, elite athleticism. This is somebody who is relentless at the point of attack, and he can help you in the run game. I think he's really good in the run game. He's going to set the edge. That is really key and critical, I think. So, on the opposite side of Byron Young, who is still a work in progress against the run. I thought he was a lot better last year than he showed in college. But Jared Verse, man, this is a heck of a pick. I had him as my 13th overall player, so I'll give this an A+ as well. The Rams really were concerned that staying pat, they were going to miss out on him, but Dallas Turner went at 17. They had Verse rated higher. And then at 18, Amarius Mims came off the board to the Bengals, who they really thought they were going to take Jared Verse. So great stuff there. Patience definitely, played out, and we both have A+ there. So we move on to the next Seminole here, the Florida State Rams, or the the Los Angeles Seminoles. The Rams traded up. Now, I want to look away from the grade with the trade. Okay, I don't think we should factor in the trade. It's kind of, okay, they gave up a lot, second round pick next year, a 5th rounder this year, and then obviously to move up from 52 to 39. Now, any trade value chart would say that they gave up too much. Personally, I don't have an issue with it because they had Braden Fisk as a first round talent. So they did what they could to acquire a guy who they felt was just as good or on the level of Jared Verse. Braden Fisk here, what was your grade, Alexis?
It's an A grade. I really liked Braden Fisk. He was my 3rd interior defensive lineman in the class, just behind Byron Murphy and Jerzon Newton, who both went ahead of him. So, yeah, I loved it. I mean, you look at Jared Verse, 6'4", 292 pounds. He runs a 4.78 40 at that size. So again, another pick, you look at Jared Verse, you look at Fisk, just elite athleticism. He's very quick for his size, obviously, but he's also very explosive and has great agility. Another high motor, another guy that you'll watch who's just relentless and does not stop until the play is finished. And he also has a pretty good set of pass rush skills, that allow him to be successful in one-on-ones with offensive linemen. So I think the Rams were looking at Braden Fisk, and they were like you mentioned, they lost Aaron Donald. Obviously, Kobe Turner had a really, really good season, as a rookie. They would love somebody that they can throw in right away to kind of be a duo with him, and Braden Fisk is that guy. I think he's going to be contributing right away to the defense.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I gave this an A as well. So we had the same grades for back-to-back. Reason being is, again, goes back to losing Aaron Donald. You go out, you get Braden Fisk. This is someone who's a day one starter, just like Jared Verse. So, right away, you're, basically attacking I would say the weakest part. Everybody was saying, okay, this defense, this doesn't have much of a pass rush anymore without Donald, which I kind of disagreed. I like that they showed the aggression to go up and get him. He was a guy, again, that they had a first round grade on, and he's somebody that tested extremely well. I think really at the end of the day, what you're hoping for here is that you keep Jared Verse and Braden Fisk together. Florida State did not lose a game when those two played together. But in addition to that, and Sean McVay brought it up in his presser, like, these two only got one season together. They're very close friends. It was really cool getting to see Jared Verse actually get to take the call with Braden Fisk and surprise him. You just don't see that very often, if ever. But I think Fisk, you talk about the motor, just again, we're going to see this, and this is going to be continuous throughout this draft class. Motor, mental toughness, physical toughness, awareness, and just, really quality people. That's just the vibe I keep getting, is just they really wanted to go after. I know some people are worried about the four pillars there back with the Billy Devaney St. Louis Rams Sosar era, but hey, I'll take good upstanding citizens if they know how to play football, and these guys do. So I gave it an A. Alexis, we move on to round 3, pick 83. Blake Corum, running back out of Michigan. I'll say this before I send it over to you, ask you for your grade. I was a little surprised they went running back this early on. I thought it would have been probably at the 99th, or maybe even, move down and get one in the 4th. But what was your grade on Blake Corum?
So I give this a B grade, and I'm with you. I thought it was a little earlier than they would take a running back. I also had some questions about the route that the Rams chose to go here. So let's talk about Blake Corum. So Blake Corum, 5'8", 205 pounds, obviously slightly, smaller running back compared to some others in the NFL. He was my 3rd graded in the class. So I did have, if you look at my running backs, I had him graded number 3. He wasn't the running back that I personally would have gone with. And the reason for that is because he is very similar to Kyren Williams. Now, after learning more about kind of the Rams strategy, I understand why they wanted to get more of like a clone of Kyren than they did a complement. And let's talk about why. So for Blake Corum, played for Michigan. So he played for the best football team in the country the past couple of years. Obviously, they won a national championship. Amazing coach in Jim Harbaugh. So he knows what it's like to be on a winning team. He knows what it's like to contribute with guys of a high caliber. He has probably the best vision of a running back in the 2024 class. He's very slippery in space. He's able to find the lane. And actually, his smaller size is kind of an advantage for him because it's a little bit harder for defenders to get a hold of him, even if they sometimes have to resort to like an arm tackle. They can't quite get their body on him because he is so shifty and slippery that they miss him, which you wouldn't think would make sense, but it does if you watch his film. So, again, he knows what it's like to be in big plays. He was kind of utilized everywhere on the field. Most of his touchdown runs in the season, I believe, were under 5 yards or under 10 yards. So they did like to throw him in short yardage situations. The reason I give this a B grade, again, is because personally I would have gone with a different style of running back to pair alongside Kyren. But the reason that the Rams, I think, liked the Corum route is because in their mind, they want to switch them in interchangeably. They want to put Kyren in, they want to put Blake in, they want them to do the exact same thing. So in their mind, they don't want to lose anything if Kyren Williams comes off the field. We saw the Rams last season, what happened when Kyren Williams came out. It was bad. We won one game, lost all the rest that Kyren Williams was unable to play. So the Rams have a very specific style of play that they want from their running back, which is why they're going to go with somebody, again, who's more a clone of Kyren than kind of that complementary alternate style. Also part of my grade, the red flags on Blake Corum were durability red flags. Around the NFL, scouting reports were a little hesitant to have him graded a little higher because of a really bad knee injury. Something that came up a lot was the inability to be a bell cow running back in the NFL. But again, the Rams didn't draft him to be a bell cow running back. They drafted him to be a duo with another running back. So I don't really think that's going to be a problem for the Rams. And then also the pass protection needs a little bit of help. But again, you could throw Kyren in for that. It's not going to matter. So yeah, I gave it a B grade. I know it was kind of a controversial pick amongst a lot of Rams fans. But Jake, I think we have similar grades on this, but what about you?
Yeah, I gave it a B plus. It just kind of slowly lingered up from a B minus to a B plus. The more and more I thought about it, the Rams have completely changed my opinion and just my way of thinking in regards to, going out and getting guys, because how many times have we used the word diversify? I mean, I feel like we use it all the time. Diversify the receiver room, diversify the running back room. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've been wrong. I thought it might make sense to go out and get somebody like, Trey Benson or somebody like that. And obviously I understand he was gone. My point though, is that level of explosion, that level of, long speed, and it's been staring us in the face. And actually this isn't new. This is just something that had just kind of occurred to me, is that, look, Sean McVay is basically saying, to your point, to echo what you were saying, Blake Corum, we wanted to go out and get a carbon copy of Kyren Williams. And I don't think that they were necessarily going out to look for that. I think they found that in Blake Corum and kind of changed their opinion on like what they wanted to do. They might not have even taken a running back. And then, he ends up watching Blake Corum's film, seeing a lot of similarities to Kyren Williams. And now it's like, okay, well, we literally didn't want to put another running back out there when Kyren Williams wasn't out there, because we didn't want to change anything about our scheme to make things easier on these running backs, to dumb things down, because you can't dumb things down. You only get 17 games in a regular season. If that's not enough, then you don't see the 18th game and so forth. So, really what it comes down to is they're doing the opposite of diversifying the running back room. Instead, they're going out and getting Blake from here, who, I mean, I texted you, I thought he was a clone of Kyren Williams. I thought they were very similar. The point is, though, you can run the same offense and they just come in and out. And so that is a really good thing, because it makes sense why, say what you will, but Robert Woods, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, they've all been very similar. I think Van Jefferson, even though he had that, better speed, I guess, than everyone else, and he could stretch the field, Van Jefferson was in that same mold as like a Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. And so I think we've always kind of seen that before. But maybe I'm just now realizing it. I don't know if we all are. But the Blake Corum pick was eye-opening, because that, like, in the explanation, because that's really what they've been doing. And it allows them to be like, oh, Cooper Kupp's out, Puka, you go right in there and play the Cooper Kupp role. And he's able to, right? So I think that's probably what we're going to see in that regard in the running back room. So I really like the pick. 8, it's a B plus for me, just because of my grade. I had Blake Corum as the 112th player. Now, NFL boards, he might have gone, earlier and whatnot. But that's just where I had him. So I really like the pick, and I like that there's no wasted motion. There's only vision and instincts. I think he's going to be a really fun player to watch. But we move on to pick 99, and it is Cameron Kinchens out of Miami, the safety, who you and we did a long live stream. And to be fair, there's a lot of players coming in and out off the board, and we're following and all that. And I think you and I both thought Cameron Kinchens was gone by this pick. So I definitely didn't think he was an option. And then all of a sudden the pick comes in, it's Cameron Kinchens. And I'm like, I thought he already went. So this was kind of a pleasant surprise, but what would you grade the Cameron Kinchens pick?
So I gave this an A minus. Again, somebody who I didn't expect to be there when we did our live stream during the draft. We both kind of were like, wait, we thought he was already gone. I mean, they're putting him basically as somebody, in my opinion, who's going to contribute right away to the defense. I think he's going to be starting day one alongside the other Cameron Curl. So we got two Camerons, spell their name the exact same way in the secondary. So that'll be fun and totally not confusing. But yeah, you look at Cameron Kinchens, 5'11", 203 pounds. Ball hawk is a term you hear a lot with him. He's a very good instinct, I think is a good word, for tracking the ball. He doesn't show hesitation to make the big play if he thinks he can make it. Pretty aggressive in the secondary, physical in coverage, does not shy away from contact. Again, very similar to the Rams' new safety they brought in, Cameron Curl. So yeah, I mean, I had him as my seventh safety in the class. So this is kind of around where maybe I could have seen him going. I don't think that, you look at him as a prospect, red flags. I mean, the only thing that I can think of and what I've seen is he's maybe not as fast as some of the other safeties. I mean, he ran a 4.65 at the combine. Some people didn't really like that. And then again, because he is aggressive, you can sometimes see the lapses in coverage. So nothing that can't be worked on or improved at the next level. So I gave this an A minus.
Yeah, I ended up giving it an A. I love this pick. It's not an A plus just because I had another safety or two rated ahead of him. And A plus, it kind of, you don't want to just give away A pluses because it kind of takes away from the whole, I guess, luster of an A plus. So I think with Cameron Kinchens, what you're getting is, I mean, potentially he could end up being the best safety in this draft. We've seen it. I mean, he didn't test extremely well, but he plays a lot faster than he tested. This is a guy who has, some serious range. That's what stands out. The instincts, the ball skills, the ball tracking ability. He's got to work a little bit on his eyes. I think he focuses a little bit too much on the quarterback, can sometimes get lost in lapses. But, I think really communication in zone defense is going to be a big thing for him. Making sure that, he doesn't have those coverage busts, trying to over pursue for, an assignment. And then the ball gets, layered over him and, there's a wide open receiver. You got to make sure that that's cleaned up. Also, when he's going downhill, if he whiffs, he doesn't have that speed to come back into the play. So maybe he needs to play with a little bit more controlled aggression, but really, really good pick. Day one starter, like you mentioned. I do think he's an upgrade over Russ Yeast, which is totally fine for Yeast because he's, big name of the game with him when they drafted him was position flexibility. So he could play all over the secondary, as a sub package player and obviously special teamer. So I love this pick. And, I definitely think that the Rams are feeling good about that one. They did not pick in the fourth round, though. I did expect them at some point or another to either trade up or trade down in the third and get a fourth rounder. They chose not to. Instead, what we end up seeing is them holding out 154, their original pick in the fifth round, and they take our friend Brennan Jackson, edge defender from Washington State. What was your grade on this one, Alexis?
I gave this an A grade. So Brennan Jackson, like you mentioned, friend, we interviewed him during the draft process. He came on our Rams podcast, 6'4", 264 pounds. Something that really stands out about Brennan Jackson, and I know that you agree with me, is just high motor. I mean, relentless. Even when you talk to him out off the football field, he just has this radiating energy, full of life, very intense, Energizer Bunny attitude. And you see that in his film. High motor, again, doesn't stop during the entire play, is very consistent. He does that every play. You don't really see him get tired. He's played effectively on the edge and the interior, although he definitely excels as an edge defender, and that's how I expect the Rams to use him. That was mostly what he did in college. Very high football IQ, very disciplined player, sets a hard edge in the run game, And again, not very many red flags with him. The only red flag I think is maybe sometimes the timing and the pass rush can be a little off. And maybe that is because he has such a high motor. Maybe he needs to exercise patience a little bit more. But for value, again, just incredible. You were able to pick him in the 5th round. And I love that they double dipped on edge, because this was a big problem of the Rams last season, was getting pressure to the quarterback. So they definitely have upgraded their room between him and Verse. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with all of that. I gave it an A+ because I think he is exactly the type of guy that they look for. I actually had him go in the 4th, early 4th. So I didn't think he'd be there necessarily. So to get him where they were at the 19th spot in the 5th was huge. I think really what it comes down to is that this is somebody that has a lot of different tools in his bag. I think when you look at just obviously the relentlessness in his pass rushing, but, also just the strength and everything that comes with it, his play strength, the footwork. I think he needs to work a little bit more on his speed to power conversion. And I do think that, he lacks necessarily the arsenal of pass rushing maneuvers, and maybe, he needs to work on some counters. But the whole point is to go out and get guys that have, what you're looking for, and then let NFL coaching do the rest. I think his best play is ahead of him. I think he is going to be a much better pro than he was in college. And I think this is somebody that I think coaches are going to like more than scouts. I don't think he fits the particular mold that maybe a scout on the road is going to look for. But I think he's going to be like a coach's guy that, like, big time. I had a feeling right from the get-go. I feel like Sean McVay is going to love him. Obviously Chris Shula. So I'm excited, to see what he could do. Joe Caniglio in that edge room. So with that said, we have Tyler Davis now, defensive tackle from Clemson, who I have to say initially I wasn't like the biggest fan of the pick. It has nothing to do with Tyler Davis because value-wise, it was a great pick. I had him going in the 5th round. It was just, I couldn't believe some of the guys that were there. And I feel like that's the tale of every draft, right? Guys fall, and it's almost like you take for granted when your team makes a good pick based on the board, because that, like, this is a good pick, but just because the guys fell that you liked more, and it kind of ruins the initial reaction to it. But Alexis, where are you at on Tyler Davis out of Clemson?
Yeah, so I'm with you. Initially, when the Rams made this pick, I wasn't like super psyched about it. And again, it wasn't because of Tyler Davis as a prospect. It was just more the value and where we had already gone in the draft. We'd just taken 2 edges. We'd already taken an interior defensive lineman. So they want to take another interior defensive lineman. So my mind, of course, I'm like, well, we already have Braden Fisk and Bobby Brown and Kobe Turner and Desjuan Johnson and now Tyler Davis. But as a prospect, he is very intriguing, and I can see where the Rams were going with this. So you look at Tyler Davis, 6'2", 301 pounds, huge guy. Again, another guy who on scouting reports, people were raving about his elite athleticism. Bench press 405 pounds, 30 reps at 225, squatted 680, and he runs a 4.9540. So again, just an athletic gem. The Rams have a type. So you look at his play and his film, he's very explosive off the first step. He has a high motor for his size, again, because he's a very large guy. He excels as a run defender. So I think the Rams are going to use him primarily to bring in the run game. I don't think that he's going to start, but I think he's going to have his niche, at least to begin, as a run defender. Has very good leverage, which allows him to actually be successful against double teams, because he was double teamed quite a bit in college, and he's been able to kind of figure out how to use his size as an advantage there and still be successful. So again, red flags, I mean, really only he did have multiple injuries during his college career. So that could have been a reason that he fell, is there's a durability concern, if that would carry over into the NFL. And then I think some people think, his arm length, it is a shorter arm length. So sometimes, depending on who he goes up against, it can kind of hinder his ability to beat offensive linemen. But I think it was a great value pick. I gave it a B-, mostly went into my grade again was just, I'm not sure it's the route I would have gone because of the way the draft had fallen. But maybe Tyler Davis beats out some of the other interior defensive linemen we have in the room. And again, as a run defender, I think that's going to be his thing. I think he's going to excel there.
Yeah, I had him as a B. To kind of echo your sentiment there with Tyler Davis. I mean, I think really they got him to be a run defender. And notice the guys they got. Brennan Jackson, get off. Verse, get off. Braden, Fisk, get off. Tyler Davis has great get off. I think when you look at what his role is, it's probably rotational. It's probably situational, and then he has a chance to develop into a starter. So we'll see what ends up happening. Bobby Brown is in a contract year, so we'll see what they do with his contract after the season. But I could see him, working his way and carving his way into a starting role. Because I mean, again, just because you're drafted in the 6th round, this is not the organization to write off anybody that's drafted anywhere or not drafted, as we've learned with UDFAs and how this team is really open-minded no matter where you come from. If you are a Ram, you're going to get an opportunity. With that said, I gave this pick an A+. Joshua Karty, a kicker that I've wanted since October. I just thought he was by far the best kicker in this draft, so I was very excited at 209 for the Rams to get him. 91% accuracy rate. Now, he hit 59, a 59-yard field goal is his longest. He's got crazy range. I mean, he was hitting 65-yarders and stuff, obviously not in a game, but I think he'll definitely be testing that leg out, kind of similar to like a Greg Zuerlein. But I think the most notable thing is, the Rams had a few of those special teams blunders. And what we saw last year were missed extra points, Alexis. So Joshua Karty doesn't miss extra points, at least not at this point in time. What was your grade on him? Because I gave him an A+.
I gave it an A+ too. Kicking has been an issue for the Rams the past couple of seasons. And, with the way that the draft was falling, we were watching the 6th round. The first kicker, Will Richard out of Alabama, went off the board. And during our live stream, I said, they have to get a kicker now with the next pick. And I'm pretty sure you were in agreement with me.
Absolutely.
Once one is off the board, then every team is going, all right, we got to go get our guy. And Joshua Karty was the guy that you and I both felt was the best kicker in the class. So in my mind, it was a no-brainer for the Rams. So I love that they went ahead and were aggressive and took him when they took him. And a lot of scouts are calling him the best kicker in the draft. I think with kickers and analysis, you mostly look at stats. It's not like evaluating other players when you're watching their film. I mean, you're either making the field goals or you're not. You're either making the extra points or you're not. And Joshua is very consistent. He's extremely accurate and he has good range. So I think the Rams nailed it on this pick, and I expect him to be a franchise kicker for them.
I do as well. And when you think about, the 49ers in the division spending a 3rd round pick on Jake Moody, and you see Moody doesn't have anything that Joshua Karty doesn't. I think the Rams lucked out in this draft having him fall into the lap, because I mean, Alexis, when the Bears took Torrey Taylor, in the 4th round, I thought for sure, a kicker was going to go a little bit earlier. To get him in the 6th, I mean, that's really good value. And I understand some people haven't quite gotten the message that we're no longer in the realm of you can take a kicker in the 7th. Like, if you want the guy that you want, you're probably going to have to take him in the 6th or even 5th. So not a reach. It's right where he probably should have gone. And it was a little bit scary when I saw a kicker come across. I wasn't sure if he was going to get picked, but Will Richard somehow went ahead of him. So good stuff for the Rams. Next up, we had at 213 in the 6th round, Jordan Whittington, wide receiver, Texas. Alexis, I'll say this, A- for him. I really like this pick, and I mean, it might be a little bold, but I see him as not only a replacement for Ben Skoranek if he's not back, because obviously he's in a contract year and everything. But I think this is someone that can end up being kind of similar to Puka Nacua. And I'm not saying he'll be Puka Nacua, but I'm saying comes out of nowhere in the 6th round, ends up maybe even starting, maybe being a premier slot. I'm not going against Jordan Whittington. I think this guy is exactly what they look for. Well, not even just the character and all of that, the leadership qualities, and just battling back after suffering, his first 3 years, 22 missed games, doesn't miss a game the next 2 years. Whittington is great after the catch. He's got, great ball tracking ability. He's got natural hands, good route runner, and he is really going to help any quarterback that's not very accurate. But Matthew Stafford's very accurate. So we'll see what ends up happening. But I wouldn't be surprised if Whittington gets a little bit of an opportunity this year and gets a huge opportunity next year, since he's one of only 3 receivers signed to the roster after 2024. But what was your grade on Jordan Whittington?
So I gave Jordan Whittington a C plus grade, and here's why. So looking at Jordan Whittington, again, you mentioned the injury history. I know that it seems like it might not be a big problem, based on the past couple of years, but it is pretty significant. It's not like he had one injury, he had several, and multiple. And I do think on his film, something that we talked about on our draft stream, there is a noticeable drop off in his play from before he started having injuries and after. He's not the same, prospect. Now, could he transcend coming to the NFL and automatically have a resurgence and kind of go back to how he was several years ago? Yes, I do think that is a very real possibility, because he has at least shown promise each year from those injuries, making an effort and being on the field, and doesn't appear to have had any major setbacks since those injuries. But you look at Jordan Whittington as a prospect. I mean, 6'1", 205 pounds. He's a very violent runner. He's good at picking up yards after contact. He's very strong hands, pretty good patience when running routes. We know that, everybody in the locker room at Texas really liked him, considered him to be a leader. So I think there's an opportunity with Whittington. You kind of take that risk on him. And the Rams did. I think that he's in probably in the short term, I think he's looked at more as a special teams guy. I think they're looking at him in kind of a Ben Skoranek kind of way. Maybe you throw him in the red zone, try to get those one-on-ones to him. And I think that he's going to have to kind of prove that he can stay healthy and that he can contribute. But the Rams liked him and they took a risk on him. So again, there was a lot of other receivers I really wanted at this spot, because I think in this draft, as we've seen, the Rams didn't go out and get that type of receiver that's going to be like an automatic, day one wide receiver 4, right? Which is, I think, what a lot of people were wanting, somebody to kind of come in and be in the mix with Kupp, Nakua, and Demarcus Robinson. I don't think that's Whittington. Now, he could come into camp and surprise. And again, if he can prove that he can stay healthy and that he can continue kind of on this upward swing to get back to where he was pre-injury, then he totally could. So we don't know. I think the Rams thought it was worth the risk. So I gave it a C+ grade. Again, mostly just because of the talent that was there when we took him, and also, the injury thing. But again, the potential is there, which is what's important.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely think the potential's there. Next up, 4 picks later, pick 217 in the 6th round. They go with Bo Limmer, center out of Arkansas. And I gave this an A because he's an elite athlete. He has elite strength, 39 on the bench. I mean, just really impressive all around, body of work and everything. I have no idea why he fell to the 6th round. I don't know. I mean, when you have the tape, you have the athleticism, you have the strength, it just doesn't really make any sense to me why he fell so far down the board. I am as my 173rd overall player. So yeah, I don't know why he fell all the way down.
Yeah, I gave this an A grade as well. I was shocked that he was available here. 6'5", 302 pounds. A lot of people consider his NFL comp to be Creed Humphrey. And we know how Creed Humphrey has panned out in the NFL. A very good player for the Chiefs. So, yeah, I mean, you look at Bo Limmer, obviously his size is ideal, but he has very good range. I think he's able to kind of, whatever you throw at him, he's pretty much able to handle, whether it's the blitz or whatnot. He has a very good stance. He's able to hold his own against most defensive linemen he goes up against. He has really good leverage, good hands. again, pretty good at reading the play, is able to adjust kind of on the fly. The only red flags that I think there are with him, and I don't think this is a major problem, but he can have lapses in pass protection. So I don't know if that is kind of what teams didn't like, that there are times where he overshoots a target and can maybe misread the situation, which can be worked on. That's nothing that, you can't practice and get better with repetition. So yeah, I gave it an A grade because, again, it's just outstanding value. I think this is a guy who we all thought would go sooner. So very excited that he's on the Rams.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really like that pick. And then they wrapped it up with pick 254. I gave him a B. KT Leveston from Kansas State. He's a guard that can play center, can also play tackle. He basically says he can play any position on the offensive line. So I like the versatility there with Leveston. But what was your grade on him?
I gave this a B minus, so very similar. 6'4", 326 pounds. I think they like his run game, technique. He excels in the run game. Doesn't get beat by defenders very often there. Has pretty good upper body strength. Pretty violent, actually. I think, as a guard, he's not afraid of contact, which is really fun to watch. Again, it was his red flags were a little similar to Bo Limmer, actually. I think he needs a better pass protection technique. I think he kind of struggled in pass protection. He excelled in the run game. Probably a patience thing, it looked like. And yeah, kind of some people, it's interesting. Some people really prefer him at tackle. Some people like him at guard. I think there's kind of some question marks about how people think he'll be used, but I think the Rams brought him in to be on the interior. So yeah, I gave it a B minus grade. Yeah.
Yeah, so that wraps it up for our final grade. And what was your final grade?
My final grade ended up being an A minus, so A grade for the Rams. I really liked what they decided to do with the draft. I liked that they prioritized defense. I'm glad that they've recognized that it was a huge need for them. Last season, just too many games where our defense just was a little bit lackluster, especially on third down, especially with pressuring the quarterback. A lot of lapses in coverage, just a lot of confusion at times. So I think what the Rams did is they said, we're not doing that this season. We are going to go get guys that are going to give us the best chance to close out plays, because they just could not get it done last season enough. So I'm glad that they prioritized that. And I think that they've drafted 3 to 4 potentially defensive guys who can start day one, because I think Verse, Fisk, and Kinchens are going to start on the defense. And then I think Brennan Jackson is going to get a lot of playing time rotating in on the edge. And then Tyler Davis, like we mentioned earlier, he's going to rotate in for the run game. So you've got all of those guys there that contribute right away. You've got Bo Limmer and KT Leveston, which are good offensive line depth. Obviously, you get your kicker with Karty, something much needed franchise kicker. And then you take the risk on Jordan Whittington and the guy who has potential, who has had to overcome a lot and seems to be in an upward swing, and they liked him as a receiver. So you go ahead and get your guy that you like, and it could end up potentially really working out for you. So yeah, it comes out to an A minus grade for me. I'm really happy with what the Rams did, and I'm excited to hear how things start going for these guys in training camp.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think that they really knocked it out of the park. I'm going to give them straight A. Really like this draft. I mean, from top to bottom. Obviously, like I mentioned, Tyler Davis, KT Leveston, maybe you and I had different guys that we would have wanted, but you can't disagree that they drafted 10 good football players that are mentally tough, physically tough, hardworking, high motor, and just guys that want to win. And I think that's an important thing here, because, looking at Verse and Fisk, they're going to be great on third downs. It's going to really make teams have a hard time being able to throw the ball down the field. And they lost that game against the Ravens, giving up a fourth down conversion. Lamar Jackson throwing that touchdown to Zay Flowers on a 4th and long. They had the 3rd and long. They had the conversions that they gave up against the Lions. So that was an issue last year, 3rd and long. And I think really this is going to be a weird thing to say, but Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Tyler Davis, Cameron Kinchens, Brennan Jackson as well. I wouldn't be surprised if this team is, even though Donald is not there, they're going to look better without Donald. And it's not going to be because Donald isn't there. I think they really upgraded last year's pressure. So I think we're going to see a lot more pressure on the quarterback coming from interior, coming from the exterior. And that's a great thing to see. It's going to make it really hard to throw again on 3rd and long and what have you. But I also think a guy like Blake Corum is going to be a really key and critical piece because, by him being a thing, you're going to keep Kyron Williams healthy because he doesn't have to be out there almost 100% of the time. You can give him breathers, keep him fresh, and hopefully keep him healthy. When you're at that body type at 196 pounds, he's not overly big. It's not like Derrick Henry. You can't run him into the ground, giving him 27 carries without really much of a break when he's always out there in pass protection, running route. He's not even getting targeted in. It's just a lot of wear and tear on the body. So Blake Corum, who, by the way, did experience some of that. He took a lot of carries in college. He is going to be huge. But I love that they got Josh Karty. End of the day, they got 4 starters. I think when you look at this class, I think we're going to look back and see a few Pro Bowlers on this class. And I wouldn't be surprised if the big, come out of nowhere player is Jordan Whittington from this class. I would not be surprised at all if he ends up having, a key role for this offense. And if Brennan Jackson ends up being a really good, we're talking like Mason Crosby. No, not Mason Crosby. Max Crosby. There we go. Max Crosby was a 4th-round pick by the Raiders, and not many people thought that he was going to be what he ended up being. We interviewed him, right? And love Max Crosby, but I didn't expect this. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised. Brennan Jackson, I mean, you talk about the work ethic Crosby has. Wouldn't be surprised if Brennan Jackson ends up being a really, really good pass rusher at the next level. So a lot of potential, a lot of floor. So higher floor guys, some higher ceiling guys. And finally, the Rams have a kicker. So no more complaints.
Yes, exactly. Much needed.
So that's going to do it. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Everyone take care. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Later, folks.
Later.